Good morning, Sunnyvale. We'll get started in just a few moments. Good morning, Sunnyvale. The fun. Virtual streaming. Almost there. Good morning. We'll just start in just a few moments. If you have any questions, just add them to the chat and I'll get to them if I can. Okay. Good morning. This week's early mural is one that I see on my morning runs every week or so, depending upon what neighborhood I'm going through. But this is one of the someone's fence that they've actually repainted, and I really love this mural. It's like "See the Good." Definitely. It's that positive message that people are putting out into their community. It's always fantastic to, see how people have decorated their homes, or whether or not it's for the holidays, or in this case, putting a positive message out there as far as what they would like their neighbors to remember. So definitely happy to promote the murals that we have here in Sunnyvale, especially those that I see on my morning runs around the city. Definitely, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week. This is the 125th installment of my weekly virtual office hours. So happy Friday, welcome to August. Hope everyone is doing well, staying healthy. If you do get the Sunnyvale Sun, you'll see an article on the front page for my selection as a Bloomberg Harvard Leadership Initiative mayor. So I was one of 40 mayors chosen from around the world for the Bloomberg Harvard Leadership Initiative, this sixth class. So I was in New York 2 weeks ago, and ultimately the four mayors from California, the photo for the four mayors from California is on the front page of today's Sunnyvale Sun. So Sacramento, Sunnyvale, Compton, and San Diego are shown on the mayors of those cities are shown on the front page of the Sun. So if you take a look, get a chance to look at that. We've now reached 872 days since the March 16, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. More than 2 years ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop office hours into these weekly live stream addresses. Haven't missed a week since. People still tell me they appreciate hearing from their mayor each week. whether they watch this live or watch this delayed a few days or even a few weeks. But I still enjoy this weekly address because it allows me to reach more of you than I could meet in any given morning at the coffee shop. But it allows me to provide you just some general updates and news, answer some of your questions, and give you some general words of encouragement. So thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale. If you want to set up a meeting with me at my in-person office hours, all you need to do is email me and we can figure out a time. Those are usually occur Friday mornings, and we can give you a 15-minute or 30-minute time slot, and we'll figure that out. But let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened to federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. Last Tuesday, council met and we reviewed the ballot measure language for the property transfer tax that conceivably was going to go on the November ballot. The problem, of course, was that Vice Mayor Cisneros was not there. And so the remaining 6 council members were evenly split on the issue. So, we did several 3-3 votes, but couldn't finalize the wording of what that would be on the ballot. So, we'll take that up again sometime in the future, but just as a general discussion, what we had been proposing was a property transfer tax, so $7.50 on every $1,000 for when a home is sold or when any commercial or other property is transferred within the city. So the big thing is we put the floor of that when that went into effect at $4 million. So ultimately, the majority of homes, it's like 98% of the homes, single family homes, would not be affected in the city. It's mainly for apartment complexes and all the office buildings and commercial buildings that transfer, mobile home communities. Whenever those would be sold, the city would get, anything over $4 million from a property transfer tax. And so that ended up being for a $4 million property, that would have been $30,000. So not that much money at the end of the day for big property transfers, but it's something that Palo Alto, Mountain View have had for years. San Jose put it in a few years ago. And so I was hoping to get it on this year's ballot. It would have brought about $6 million or more, an average of $6 million more into the city coffers every year. And this would have helped in a lot of different things. But, from our standpoint, we were looking at some of our unfunded projects that, we never get to, whether or not that's the liquid amber tree replacement or, putting additional funding into dealing with the unhoused issues in our city. But I think it would have made a big difference. That being said, because we were split and couldn't make a decision either way, council basically we table that for now and figure out sometime in the future that we'll conceivably put that on a ballot. From a city standpoint, or from a county standpoint, we had until August 9th or August 11th to finalize the ballot wording, the pro and con arguments, the rebuttals. So it wasn't, it was a lot of work to get done in a very short period of time. If we called a special meeting or, there were a lot of steps before we got that ballot measure finalized. So ultimately we couldn't get that done this year, but hopefully sometime in the future we'll be able to do that. We also gave direction to amend the Sunnyvale Municipal Code to change the appointment process to fill vacancies on city council. So, applicants now need to get at least 20 signatures. Mainly, that's something that if somebody was running for city council that they would need to do. They would also, applicants would need, and part of the changes that we did was provide provisions to add impasse language. So if council is deadlocked, like we were this year, ultimately one of the council members and all the council members basically unanimously approved one of the candidates. But if it's completely deadlocked, going to pulling a if we have two candidates and we're equally sided on of, half of council wants one and the other half of council wants the other, and we can't get to the basically a majority of council to agree that on this best candidate, then conceivably we have a way of breaking the tie, pulling a name from the hat. And then the other big thing that we did was removed ranked choice voting provisions that were in there that actually caused some issues when we were looking at the possible appointment. So it worked out this time, but we got rid of, we cleaned up some of that language from an ordinance standpoint to make sure that if we ever have to do an appointment in the future, and hopefully we don't have to do that, we're ready to undertake that. And then last Wednesday evening, we had the grand opening of Sunnyvale's newest park, Muwekma Park, at the old AMD campus. So, I was really proud that we were able to open a 6.5 acre park with lots of amenities. It looks fantastic. And this is, the value of basically negotiating with developers when they are, wanting additional density. So ultimately there will be 900. So when the Irvine development purchased the AMD, the old AMD campus, they wanted a density of apartments and condos, and ultimately it was 900 apartments and about 120, 150 condos. But the bigger thing is that negotiation with the city is we wanted a city park there. And especially, the design looked great. We did community outreach to do all that, but we wanted to support kind of the growing neighborhood where we're doing it, where we've already done a lot of industrial to residential conversion, but also it helps serve a historically underserved community. The San Miguel neighborhood didn't really have a park, other than the land next to San Miguel Elementary. The closest park was, either Lakewood Park, if you went, over the 101 freeway, or basically went to Fair Oaks Park. And so this 6.5 acre park, all the amenities, all the open space looks fantastic, but it really helps that community too. And it was good to have, so council named it Muwekma Park to honor the Muwekma Ohlone tribe Indians. And so their tribal members were there, and they gave us a blessing before the ribbon cutting. So, I think it was really great to attend, and, the Sunnyvale Heritage Park Museum was there to show some of their tribal artifacts as well. But, it's great to open up new parks. The Sunnyvale has its park master plan, and that's really our roadmap to invest $200 million to enhance every park in the city within the next 20 years, and also open new parks like this one. So, it's fantastic that, it shows our city's value of what open space is. It's accessibility to open space for everyone in the city as much as possible. So thanks to those previous councils that started that effort, and happy to open that 4th new park in the last 8 years. So we'll have more to come, but it's always great to make those, push those things forward, and have more open space available to the community. And then last Friday was the grand opening for Nature's Ice Cream on Washington Avenue. And so this is the place where the old LePlanc wine bar used to be on Washington. We had a ribbon cutting, but there are lots of people out there to try their ice creams and have a cone or have a bowl. And so definitely a lot of people enjoyed that. So happy to see everybody in person for that event. And then last Saturday was Students for Society's youth. They basically hosted a community-wide recycling drive at Homestead High School. And so good to be out there and meet all the students that were part of that program, as well as collecting. I think this is the first of several events that they'll be having through the fall and going into next year. But it's great to see, the Bay Area youth basically passionate about helping the environment and protecting the environment. So I was happy to join them. And then, of course, last Sunday was the Quarter Note Bar and Grill's 22nd annual benefit for the Canine Search and Rescue. So, lots of dogs out, lots of dog handlers there, but there's a barbecue and an auction, live music. The Quarter Note is very well known for live music on a weekly basis. And even a Mr. Softy. I hadn't had a Mr. Softy cone for years now, and they've kind of they almost went away, and now they're slowly building up the number of trucks that they have here in the Bay Area. So they were out there also, but it's always a lot of fun to meet the canines, to meet their handlers, and beautiful weather, beautiful day. And then as far as this week is concerned, on Monday morning, I was there bright and early at Sunnyvale Community Services for their Ready to Learn event. And this used to be the Backpacks to Schools event, but it's somewhat changed under COVID, and also kind of what the needs of the students are. So Monday and Tuesday of this week, Sunnyvale Community Services basically helped out the youngest clients by providing school supplies and gift cards. And so as opposed to just giving them a backpack, here it was, giving them school supplies, pens and markers and folders and paper, but also most importantly, a gift card for shoes, backpacks, other essentials, depending upon what that student actually needs. And it was great to see so many smiling faces from parents, so many smiling faces from our students, so from the kids in the cars. But I just want to thank everyone who really made that day possible. Lots of our tech companies and local leaders stood up and helped. Google, Intuitive Surgical, Diane and Regis McKenna, who are always very generous to Sunnyvale Community Services. Facebook, NetApp, El Camino Health, Star One Credit Union, so lots of good support for this project. And I think it was 2,000 to almost 3,000 students that were going to be provided these boxes with school supplies, and most importantly that gift card. So happy to help out, happy to basically as they cycled through car after car, it was actually really good to work with the volunteers, as well as say hi to some of the parents. So really good day, and in how people give back in our community is really fantastic. And then on Monday afternoon, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency to speed up efforts to combat monkeypox. So, that's we became the third state to take that step. The declaration basically helped California coordinate government-wide response to seek more vaccines and lead the outreach and education efforts on how people can get treatment and get the vaccination. So yeah, nearly, I think 800, almost 800 monkeypox cases have been reported in California, but and that virus mainly spreads through prolonged and close skin-to-skin contact, which includes a lot of things from hugging, cuddling, kissing, all that, to sharing bedding, towels, and clothing. So there's still it's still a question mark of how well it's spread. And so this is just kind of raising the awareness from that standpoint. And then as far as Tuesday night was National Night Out. So this is our the first Tuesday in August every year is the national day for people to come together and have block parties and get to know your neighbors. So, it was great to visit. There were 11 different locations, at least sanctioned. They basically signed up with the Department of Public Safety to say that they were here and that they wanted, either the canine officer, the fire trucks, the motorcycle officers to come by. I was able to make it to 8 of the 11. for a little while, and it was just great to be back in person and meet the different neighbors around the city. It was a fantastic evening as far as that's concerned. And I heard, lots of people, lots of kids so happy to climb all over the fire trucks or meet the canine officers. But, beyond that, Sunnyvale Recreation staff was out there, the library staff was out there, and, raising, and actually our Sunnyvale CERT team for those people that want to be prepared for the next earthquake or want to get involved. So lots of community interaction and, lots of just neighbors, seeing neighbors. It's been a difficult 2 years, and a lot of people hadn't met some of their neighbors. So it was good from that standpoint to go from location to location and see how the different neighborhoods were, celebrating with food and potlucks, live music at multiple different locations, pizza parties, all of that. So, always happy to join that event. And especially, after a difficult few years in COVID, happy to see communities bonding and getting to know each other better. And then last night, County Vector Control did more spraying for adult mosquitoes. This time it was North Sunnyvale, so and include parts of Santa Clara and parts of San Jose. The general area covered this time was the west side was Fair Oaks Avenue. The east was Lafayette Street in San Jose, Santa Clara. The south was Highway 101, and the north was basically Bayland, so going into the bay. And so ultimately, there was lots of ground spraying as far as that's concerned, but ultimately lots of, hopefully everybody closed their windows and weren't out, but it started at 10 p.m. last night and lasted for a few hours. We've had lots of discoveries of West Nile virus in the South Bay between Sunnyvale and Milpitas, lots of areas around the South Bay here that they've actually had to spray in the last few months. And so hopefully this will help prevent mosquitoes. If you see standing water, that's the biggest thing of where they're breeding, is trying to make sure that there's no standing water, that report that to Valley Water if you see it. Let's go. And then, last night was also the grand opening of the Hampton Inn, and this is the near Wolf Road and El Camino Real. This took the place of the old Summer Winds Nursery, but the hotel's already been open for several months. I've heard lots of different residents and people that have been staying there. Urban Plates, when they brought in staff and brought in people to train for the last few months, when they were finalizing that store, that's where their people stayed. And when there was the Fallen Officers Memorial back in May, several of the families that came into town for that memorial actually stayed at the Hampton Inn. So they've been serving our community for a while now, and it was good to meet their staff, meet their owners, and several of the people that open up the Hampton Inns all the time. So it's good to be out last night for that event. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly COVID numbers. COVID numbers across the nation have stabilized slightly. And, of course, President Biden tested positive for COVID again last week after taking Paxlovid for a while, and, it had gone away. And then at the end of taking that medication, COVID came back. So, he tested positive again. But from a national standpoint, we've now passed 91.5 million cases. That increased by another 900,000 new cases in the last week. And then nationally, we've had over 223 million fully vaccinated. Over 48% of those that are available for or available to get the booster have received their booster. And 83.5% of those 5 years and older have at least received one dose. So in general, a lot of people have got their vaccine. 77% of adults are fully vaccinated, and we still have people passing away with related to COVID. We've now had another 4,000 in the last week pass away. So we're at 1,027,000 deaths. And as far as California, we passed 9.9 million positive cases. We'll probably pass 10 million cases of COVID in the next week. And we've seen a surge, of the daily average. It's finally starting to stabilize. We've dropped back a little to 16,000 new cases a day. That's down from 17,000 last week, but it was in the 20,000s for the previous few weeks. So we're at least finally stabilizing the teens. We're still at a 15% test case positivity average for the last 8 weeks. So still a lot of people are testing positive with COVID. And we've had another over 300 new deaths related to COVID in the state. So that brings to almost 93,000 fatalities. So we'll pass 93,000 in the next week also from a statewide standpoint. From a county standpoint, our cumulative case rate is now over 413,000 cases. That's up about 5,000 in the last week. That's down from 6,000 the week before. We've had 13 additional new deaths. That's 2,381 deaths in the county related to COVID. But greater than 95% of those 18 and over are fully vaccinated, and more than 88.7% of those that are eligible for the booster have already received it. So all that is good from trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19, or trying to prevent people from getting very sick, from trying to make sure that they're at least if they are exposed and they do catch COVID, hopefully they're not getting hospitalized. And our hospitalization numbers have been fairly good as far as that's concerned. I continue to do lots of advocating on our city's behalf, especially at the county level, with discussions with the county supervisors, county health, for testing. The county will be bringing back COVID testing at the community center on the first and third Thursdays of the month, starting back in September. That was put on hold while there were summer camps going on at the community center. Logistically, there were some issues of trying to deal with so many kids being there, and then trying to cycle in a lot of people that conceivably had been exposed to COVID and wanted to get tested. So from that standpoint, it was just a safer thing to do for the summer. And then, if you want to find a location that you can get tested at from a county standpoint, you can go to sccfreetest.org or go to covidtest.gov. They have, either pharmacies that you can do, or picking up COVID tests. One of the things that the county just recently did was adding the availability of getting COVID tests for basically visually impaired people. So that's one of the things that they've added, that capability. And so there are special tests for walking people through verbally how to do those tests. So, making sure all the packaging has appropriate Braille and things of that nature. And then as far as getting vaccinated, you can go to sccfreevax.org or go to vaccines.gov to get your different vaccination sites. And then let's go ahead and announce some of the upcoming events. So tomorrow, Saturday, August 6th, is Pizzella's annual Hot August Nights. So that's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow. Lots of classic cars and food, drinks, music, lots of fun. So if you haven't had a chance to see that, it's a classic car show that Pizzella's has been having for many years now. And then as far as next Friday, August 12th, will be our Sunset Movies at Washington Park. And so August 12th will be the movie Encanto, and that starts at 7 p.m. And then the next one will be on September 9th, and that will be Luca, and that'll also be at Washington Park at 7 p.m. So Friday nights, bring the family, bring some lawn chairs, and enjoy music or enjoy movies at the park. And then as far as upcoming council meetings, our next meeting is August 9th, and that will start out with a study session on the creation of a human relations commission. So, staff and council will be talking about, possibly creating that and what form that would take. And then as far as the main meeting, we'll be discussing several things, one of which is modifying the recreation fee waiver program to reflect those, basically changes to try to do fee waivers in certain circumstances. And then we'll also be looking at appeal of the planning commission meeting on a decision for the project at the corner of Fremont and Sunnyvale, Saratoga. And finally, we'll be looking at approving the memorandum of understanding between the city of Sunnyvale and the Sunnyvale Employees Association. So that's those negotiations for their contract have been going on for a while now. And finally, we'll be approving that final contract. That's our biggest employee association. And then the following Tuesday, August 16th, we'll be interviewing those people who've applied for boards and commissions, but we'll also be reviewing a project for the corner of Matilda and Olive. That's about 125,000 square foot, 4-story office building with 2 levels of underground parking. So lots of things coming up, and especially August 30th will be another big meeting at the end of the month. But we'll talk about that at the next office hours. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. If you have questions, just add them to the chat. Kelly asked, are there any plans to bring pickleball courts to Sunnyvale? So actually, Kelly, pickleball is already a big part of the tennis center. Lots of people playing pickleball, and our public safety team just won a pickleball tournament, and that's one of the places where they were practicing was at the Sunnyvale tennis court, or the tennis center. So definitely pickleball is already a up and coming sport around the nation. And if you haven't had a chance to try it, there are classes, there are, I think, even competitions happening at the tennis center. So definitely look at that. Viviana asked, where exactly is the new park located? So it's at the old AMD campus. It's just west of Lawrence Expressway, right where Duane comes in and then curves upward. So, this is the old AMD campus. So it's just south of the San Miguel neighborhood. It's officially on Indian Wells Avenue. So I can't remember, but also if you basically look at one AMD Place on your map, even though AMD is no longer here, one AMD Place is still part of Google Maps because it's been there for so many years. Zhang asked, can we reduce the content of minerals in our tap water? And so the mineral content is actually evaluated on a weekly basis by staff. They go out and take samples at several locations around the city. But we actually get our water from 2 different sources, the SFPUC, San Francisco Public Utility, and also the Valley Water. And so from both of those, it's actually, they have quality controls as far as that's concerned. But from a city standpoint, we monitor that, and the mineral content basically meets all the federal regulations as far as that's concerned. Shannon asked, there's a very limited on-site aftercare for elementary students in Sunnyvale. Many sites don't even have aftercare programs, and many parents are struggling to find care as they work full-time. Is there anything in the works to increase availability and access to quality on-site aftercare programs? So I know that there are several programs that I haven't talked to the superintendent of Sunnyvale school districts for a while. I know that they were looking at that last year, and they'd had several programs at one or two of the schools. I'm not sure if they're planning to restart that for the upcoming school year. Let me talk to the superintendent and find out, what's happening as far as that's concerned. Let's see. Several comments about pickleball. Garrick asked, I wonder if City of Sunnyvale has funds to issue every resident with a respirator and 100% cartridge filters. If we're going to mass, then do it right. Currently, no, although I do know that lots of the, if you look at N95s, you can actually get those from a lot of the pharmacies now that they are giving them away. So, but yeah, definitely as we get into fire season, which we're, in the middle of, it's like almost a year-round fire season now, but we actually haven't had really bad air quality. But as we get into the fall, that's usually the case. Other questions? Chris asked, where does the name Muwekma come from? So it's the name of the tribe, so Muwekma Ohlone. It actually means the people. And then Joanna asked, what is going in across from the Whole Foods? So that's actually an art corner. So, right now they fenced around Redwood Square. So the old Redwood Square. So that's a staging zone for basically there's two halves to the underground parking. The southern half is where the residential is. The northern half is where the office space will be. And there'll be retail along all the bottom of that, but the Redwood Square is fenced in, and that's where the staging zone is for the residential half. And then across the street, part of the Macy's parking lot was taken up by the office half of that project, because it kind of split into two different construction groups, and they'll be on their own timelines to a large degree. But right at that corner where Macy's is, there's actually going to be artwork, there's going to be landscaping, there's going to be paths. So that's actually what they're working on at the moment. David asked, why has the market moved in the old Macy's parking lot? Yeah, so definitely because of the pouring that they need to do on Saturdays for all the cement or for all the concrete that for the underground parking, they'll be pouring a lot on Saturdays. So they actually needed to move and get a lot of construction in there, because they're on Saturdays, they'll be taking almost 100% of the output from the cement plants. And so ultimately making sure that Washington was more available on the north side of the property for the next few months. Once they're finished with all that pouring, then things will go back to normal as far as the farmers market is concerned. But right now they take a few aisles of the Macy's parking lot, as well as kind of the portion of Washington Avenue east of Murphy. So anyway, but yeah, the market is still there. It's moved around a little bit, but thanks to City Line, they gave up some of that parking of the parking lot to make sure that the market is still viable as far as that's concerned. And then let's see. I think that's it as far as questions are concerned. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. These are still uncertain times. Lots of people are still getting COVID, and now, we have the monkeypox. And so there's lots of stress, lots of concern in our community and around the state, around the country. But I want you to know that no matter what the challenges we face them together. I'm proud of Sunnyvale and how our residents have responded to the numerous challenges over the last few years. I'm thankful to everyone who helps out in our community, showing their kindness, generosity, they're showing their empathy, but your actions and your attitudes really do make a difference. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together and we will get through this together. Thanks for listening and have a fantastic week. Goodbye.